So in this one, I'm going to look at arrays. Now, arrays are very different in C# to Python in that they can only store, well, they normally, although there is a way around this, but we'll talk about this later, they can only store data from the same data type. Now, you might think that seems so much worse than Python. Why would they do this? But the reality is that as we'll learn something later on, you should, if you're going to have something, let's say like a football team that has like name, games won, games played, or all the things, you should be creating a class or a structure for that, not just we'll have the third positions might have the games played. There should be a structure to it where you have elements that say things like games played, and that's the games played for that team. And then because you have a structure or something called like a football team, you can have an array of football teams. That is a sort of better way to code things, really. Although Python can do such things, and obviously allows the flexibility of adding multiple things, it is considered sort of bad practice to do that because, how do you know the fourth element is in the game's played? You know that because you know it. Now that sounds really silly, but I mean, if you know it because you wrote it, if you're in a big team, how's that someone else going to know the fourth element is the array? So that means you've got to write some comment that says at the top of the fourth element's the game's played, the fifth element's the goals scored, the sixth element's the goal. So then a little number like, I thought I was adding up the goals scored, but really I was doing 5 instead of 4. It's not really very good. Whereas if you're literally calling it dot goals scored, dot goals, dot goals against, then when they want to get the goal scored, they just go like team 1 dot goal scored, not just team 1 square bracket 4 square bracket and hoping the 4 is the right number. So just understand that it seems like it's a letdown that you can't have different data types in an array, but actually in reality, good programming, you would never really do that. So anyway, let's have a look at this one here. So it's an array of strings, and we'll do names. Okay, so you just start like this, and square bracket, you put the names in like this, Martin, Sarah, we'll do 3, okay? And then if I were to do console dot write line and then do names, you will see the difference. What the hell just happened? It doesn't print it all out. Well, you might think as well that's not very useful, but in reality the printing it out with the weird square bracket before is really no use. You always end up making some sort of print out each one at a time anyway. So Python's printing out an array with a square bracket at the start isn't really any use. And as I said, normally you'd be doing much more advanced things, and you can actually make these structures print themselves, and you'll some to print, and they'll do clever code to print themselves. But we'll get onto that much more later on when you see the reality of it. So anyway, so you can't just print them all out like that. You can, however, access them individually, just like before. And there is many ways to print them out with a for loop. You could do it the same way. You can do, and this is one thing that Python does have, but you will try this way. So you could do a for loop in I equals 0, comma I less than names.length, which is the same as len names, and then comma I plus plus, and then you would do names I, although I forgot to write I up here, which is why it all went a bit funny. I did wonder why it went a bit funny as I was writing it, and I've also put in there I plus plus. So you can see that's going to write I, because I is going to be 0, then 1, then 2, so it's going to print 0, then 1, then 2. It's going to print out the people. This is exactly the same as Python pretty much, except we're using a different for loop structure. Okay, so this one you can do something a little bit different though. You can do for each, which is quite good, and you go each string I in names. And so what that will be is, and then you just print out I will be, literally will be Steve, and then I will be Martin, and then I will be Sarah. So that's another way that you can do it. So just you do it that way. But of course the flaw in this is that we don't know what loop we're in, which, maybe if we're just looking to see if we've already got Steve in there, we don't care. But if we wanted to find out where Steve is, then that's no good, because we don't know where we are in that thing. So we just know that it's in there, and it'll print it out. There we go. So that's quite handy. But often in arrays, you're just going through them, and then you don't actually, maybe you want to add 1 to everything in an array or something weird like that. I could show you how to do that if we did int of nums, and then I'll just do nums, and then we set them to just random numbers like 6, 8, 4. Call them nums. Now this way you would have to do it the other way. You can't do it like this because these won't actually be the ones in here. There'll be copies of them. So even if we added one to them, they still won't be. So actually, we just try that. I'll show you actually. So I equals I plus 1, or just I plus plus. Okay, so this will write out 795. What did I do wrong? Oh, it's telling me I can't do it actually. So I can't even add 1 to it because it's not letting me. You can't even increase that by 1. So yeah, it wouldn't. What I was going to try and show you was that if it did allow you to increase it by 1, it wouldn't do it forever. It would be temporary for this. So let's just run that, and it gives 684. Now, if we want to actually increase each bun by 1, now we've got to do for in I equals 0, where I is less than num's length, I plus plus, and then we would do I equals I plus 1, and that would permanent, not I equals I plus 1, sorry. We would do nums I plus plus, and then we print out nums I, and actually you'll see that it has actually gone up here to 795. And if we were to run that 5 times, all these numbers would go up 1 every time. So we're accessing that box and increase it by 1, and then we're printing out the box, but that's permanently changed what's in here. Right. So there's lots of things you can do in there's loads of ones you can do in C# with arrays. You can sort them. Nums.sort. Although I think you need to include this thing called system.link. Do you need that for this one? Array.sort nums. Sorry, there we go. So if you do arrays.sort, array's a nice thing. You've got a few other ones there. You can reverse it, which would flip it. You can do a few other things. Resize it, sort it, whatever. So now that's going to say 468. That's actually really useful. Let's just delete the bit where we increase it. There we go. So 468. So it sorted it. That could be really handy, especially if we wanted to perform some sort of binary search. We need to sort the data beforehand. We could sort it. So you can see. There is also there's lots of other things, but if you do using, I think it's called system.link. Although obviously when you do these things, you have to look them up. Link. Then you can get like the maximum and minimum of the thing, or the sum. Say you wanted to get the sum of all of them. Like sometimes we're adding up all the numbers in a thing. You could just do nums.sum, and it will give you the sum of them. Let's take out the sort just for no reason. That's just going to give you the sum of the numbers. 18. We've got min and max. That will give you the min and max. So you can see it's got quite a few built-in things that are a little bit easier for working with some things. I mean, that's just whether, There are lots of other ways to create arrays, and we're going to go through them a bit more advanced. But I think I'll stop there on this video because it's only an introduction to arrays.